week's episode of LevelUp Cyber. My name is Tony Bryan, your host and Executive Director of CyberUp. Been looking forward to this conversation. Ben Miller, our guest today, is a friend for quite a few years of the organization. We've had a few drinks together over the years and had lots of great times. So he is the guy to me on today's topic, which is cons, competitions, and community. He's the representative to me that speaks volumes to that kind of concept. So I couldn't think of any better person to talk about it. So Ben, man, thanks for joining us today. Excited to have this conversation. Let's start with you just telling everybody a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So Ben Miller, I'm one of the founders of B-Side St. Louis. We started back in 2015. I saw a need for the community to have a local regional conference with the same level of speakers that you can find at bigger conferences like ShowMeCon, Black Hat, DEF CON. I got into technology years and years ago, got into security years and years ago, and my big passion is making it make sense for everybody. And to do that, we need to network together. So I love this topic. I love going to cons. I love talking about all the things to do and ways to learn and to get the most out of them. So, yeah.
So let's just, we'll start with the cons question first, right? So obviously you started B-Sides and there's a passion there. I know RSA is coming up here, and there will be all kinds of things, so dive a little bit into the importance of kind of the con community and like what it actually means to the fabric. Cause I think it is something that kind of floats, especially for a lot of students going through these programs. And they're always asking, what do I want to learn more. I want to get involved. So like what role does cons play into that space for you?
Absolutely. So I'm glad you mentioned RSA. There's a lot of different kinds of cons out there. RSA is very much a executive business corporate level. What tools are out there that I can use to protect my business, my customers? There's other conferences that are more information sharing amongst peers. That are like the Black Hat, DEF CON, ShowMeCon for people that are maybe intermediate to higher level experienced practitioners is the term I've heard used a few times. And then you've got your local free, smaller, bring the interested to the connected is the personal tagline I put on B-Side St. Louis of it's free. It's perfect for students. It's perfect for people that I've got this job I don't like. I hear technology and security is fun and I want to go do that. What do I need to know? Because it's not just the what thing do you need to learn, whatever new hotness of exploits or defense. It's also the who is doing it and can you learn from them? And I find that all of these cons can connect the people. But if you're a student trying to go to RSA and you're just walking around getting sales materials, it's not going to be as useful as a student going to a B-Sides and being connected. Oh, you want to learn this? That's the guy that just gave a talk about it. Let's go ask him a question. The other cons that you find kind of in the middle are a good mix. The local conference here in St. Louis that is happening, I think, before this airs is the ShowMeCon. It's at the Ameristar Casino. And it is very much a business and hacker and student, all put them together and see everybody just talk in the hallways and learn from the speakers. So there's a great set of mixes. But if you go to the wrong con for the wrong reasons, you're not necessarily going to get the most out of it.
Well, you and I, before we hopped on, talked. COVID had a detrimental impact on a lot of these things. I know specifically for St. Louis, even the meetup space is kind of, I won't say dried up, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, right? And I think it has gotten slower because I think people have become more mindful and conscientious of their time and how they use it. So I think it's much more important that when you do things like that, you're intentional, you're deliberate, and you have good topics and speakers. Because I found that as long as that stuff coincides with one another, people will attend and people will support. If it gets loose, then people have a tendency to that's not where I'm not going to drive there, right, for this stuff. Because there's so many people that are working remote. And
yes,
like I got to leave my house now to go to this thing. Do I want to do that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the local meetups. That's a great example of things that worked pre-COVID. And it was just more of this is how I unwind after a day at the office and talk amongst my peers. And sometimes I miss those days, coming back into town after a forensic investigation. My plane landed at 10 p.m. Oh, hey, there's a few people still over at the Cheshire. I'm going to go grab a drink and unwind and talk hacking and talk security. That's just people are more intentional about it. And so what I have found is the way that you just talked about is really how our friends in KC do things. SEC KC has a monthly meetup, and they have an agenda, presentations, sponsors for food, so on and so forth. And then if you've got all it takes is two people to make a gathering, right? And then if you do it on a regular basis at the same place, invite more people, anybody can start something like that if you've got a passion for talking about something. If you think, man, I wish one of those existed and I don't know anybody that's doing it, maybe you're the one to start it.
It's good advice. Well, I think there's layers, right? So let's unpack the layers, and I want to say layers or maybe complexity. We'll call it an Oreo, right? So there's, I think of things like general, to your point, meetups, right? We're kind of coming off a tech week. Most big cities have tech weeks, and so it's a ton of events and a lot of topics and speakers, and you go and you learn and you kind of go away, right? So there's those. Then you've got your B-sides and your DEF cons. Then you've kind of got your data connector, secure worlds, and like those kind of conferences. So they do range, right?
Oh yeah.
So like maybe I'm trying to put this question in a simple way. So like I'm a college student, where should I be focusing my time? I'm a mid-career, how do I determine which of those should I be hanging out in?
So one of the ways that I've answered that question in the past that I still have found very useful is, are you learning or are you needing to connect? If you're learning, a lot of that can still be done online by yourself. There are great platforms. YouTube is the one that I wish I had had when I was starting my hacker journey. There's people like IPPSec out there just giving away knowledge because it helps them enrich their knowledge. If you're just learning and you learn by listening or doing, great. When you're learning nuance and you know how to do a few things, one of the best ways you can learn is go talk about it with other people who know how to do it and learn, well, this is how they did it and it worked out this way, those difference of changes. So a lot of time at that student level, I'm building my knowledge base. You also need to be building your network of people who know what you know and know what you don't know. And connecting to those people. And I think that's where the small regional conferences like the B-sides and the meetups and the SecKCs and the STLSec and all of that come into play. Once you've got a little bit of an idea of maybe I know kind of things that I can do and what I want to do, you actually have a plan. You're not just like, I want to be in security, because security is kind of big. I think most people have learned that by now. Once you've got that, I know a little bit of network security, maybe some forensics. I want to go talk to more people who do breach investigation. I want to talk to people who do threat hunting internally. I want to talk to specific information types. Then you want to be spending some money and investing in yourself to go to these more specialized conferences, because there's a conference for any particular thing you want to talk about, and any two topics that are even tangentially connected. There's a conference that I attended and helped with a little bit in Detroit that is literally for therapists that deal with sex therapy and technology, called Securing Sexuality. It was such a great event because I'm interested in some of that psychology piece, and I got to answer questions that I love to answer, like, how do I do MFA? I've heard I need to. And actually help people that really, really needed help. And by helping people, you learn so much more. If you try to just build your own kingdom and your own knowledge and you never share it, you're missing out on some of the best ways to learn. Once you hit that intermediate level, I've gotten my job in security. I've been doing it for a year, maybe two. It's time to start planning time to share. Develop those meetups, develop those contacts, take people out for beers like we used to do when they've got questions, and make time for that. That networking is such a foundational piece that I think people miss out on because of our natural inclination as techies to be introverted and spend all our time in front of a screen. I'm pointing at my bigger screen off to the side. That we miss out on some of that learning that we can get from other people in meet space. And you really need to be intentional about that. Even though it's scary, it's just as scary for everybody else. Even though it takes more time than just Google searching ChatGPT, how do I do this? How do I do that? You learn more from the overall conversations about people and how they work and think than you do from just the tech manual, the ChatGPT, the YouTube video. And then, of course, I am very much a believer in, hey, you know something really well. The only way you're going to learn more at the top of your class is to teach others the basics. If you're somebody who's been in tech and security 5-10 years, you're the person that's supposed to be guiding other people I remember reading it was either the Phoenix Project or the Unicorn Project, whichever one is from the point of view of the developer, that it's like you should be spending your time making things easier for the beginners. If you can do that, if you're running the cons, setting up the talks, if you're helping people in your organization learn more and giving them that mentoring time, you're learning so much more and can do so much more with your time to help others. And it's a force multiplier at that point, right? It's not just you that knows, it's these 10 new people that now know what you know, or at least parts of it. And they can do so much more than you could ever do with your limited time and heartbeats. So big passion of mine to make sure that we're giving back, and in giving back, that's how you network really well. And in being poured into, that's how you learn the most as a beginner. So it all loops around.
I like the mind. I mean, it applies to like our youth program where we're asking, professionals to go and talk to students, right? And sure, it's basic stuff, but we all can use a good reminder here and there.
Always need a good reminder. And like we were talking earlier, the basics never go out of style. Not knowing that something is your problem to patch leads to things not getting patched, leads to organizations being breached. So basics are important.
I've never claimed to be a technical person in any of this. Right? Like, I can talk a good game, but for me, it's all going to fall apart behind a keyboard. But what I have noticed, right, the ISACAs and ISC Squared, great events. The vibe is different, right? Like they're from a con or a B-sides. And so,
yep.
And I think, that was like the question around like, where should I go? To me, every time I've gone to ISACA, ISC Squared, it's been very high level management type of thing of how you work with your team. You might get some vendor stuff, but it's not a very technical group. It's more broad concept kind of learning for those chapters. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's a great way to get your CPEs and continue to learn and network. But like speak to the difference between like that and like
Absolutely.
obviously a con, because to me, like those are different hemispheres. I think it changes, a different the mindset is different. I think, you've got Hacker Ben sitting here. To me, those represent hacker mindsets, but I don't get that sense when I go to an ISC Squared ISACA that that's a hacker kind of mindset idea.
It's definitely not. I am. There needs to be both. The industry professional side of things is absolutely critical to making security be more of something that it needs to be. It needs to be more natural, more part of everything we do, like power is and electricity. Careful with your cup. You need to make sure that we have that level of professionalism and accreditations and certificates. It has its place. But for the person trying to learn, especially, you need to seek out other people who do exactly what you do or close or exactly what you want to do. And the industry is going to be, I need you to be this tall to play the game, to ride the roller coaster. The community is going to be the people going, here's a booster seat. Here's how I learned it. Maybe go try this ride over here instead. Is the more, I don't want to say more friendly, because industry is friendly too. ISACA and ISC2, ISC Squared, whichever they are now, they want to get more people in the industry. But I am very, very firm in my belief that you need to be part of the community first. And be welcomed in. I hear stories from some of my hacker legend friends, these people that I've looked up to for years and now finally get to drink with and sit around and hear stories from, of, going to DEF CON by hopping on a train and stowing away to get to Vegas. That's something you do because you're passionate about it and you want to join a community, not because you need CPEs. The CPEs have their place and they absolutely help you with your career. But if you're focused on that learning piece and being the person that you want to be with the knowledge that you want to have, the community is the place for those events. When you're the person who is maybe more established in their career and you're continuing to broaden your industry knowledge and industry professional image even, that's where your organizations like that. I tend to think of them more as unions of representation than as communities to join and be a part of. So the B-Sides community, local hacker communities, other tech communities, those are the places where you go to get the knowledge and to network with the people. The industry professional accreditation events are for the industry. So both very much needed.
Well, like I think, like probably much like yourself, right? At some point in a career, you've been in long enough where you hit a crossroads. There's a crossroads of like, do I want to go into people leading, or do I want to stay as an individual contributor, right? And like I feel like ISAC, ISC Squared generally are people leaders, and
They
it feels
can be.
and that's a very broad generalization. But like
I was gonna say, if I could just take over that conversation, because I have a really weird belief on that. People leading versus individual contributor. You should be leading while you're an individual contributor, and as a people leader, you should be getting out of the way of your individual contributors and keeping them safe from the bad things like HR violations and policy screw ups and all of that. They're both critically important. But people leadership is such its own nuance that I don't know that every career ever hits that point. I'm very fortunate that there's a path in my main place of employment that I can keep being an individual contributor and still lead from the perspective of people ask questions, people learn from me, we do initiatives, we do these things. I can still be a leader of something like a B-Sides because I established myself as a leader without being a people leader who deals with time clocks and HR violations. I don't want to set up a dichotomy where, and I've heard this phrase from a few of my peers. It's like, well, my knowledge is too crystallized and I don't want to keep learning. So I'm just going to go into people leadership because it's easier, because it's certainly not easier. And it's certainly not for everybody. And it's not something that you have to do. But if you choose to, I hope that you're focused on the developing your people, that leadership, whether you have the positional place or you have just by nature of who you are, you're growing other people around you and protecting them from harm and self-harm, external and internal within the organization. But it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't have to be in most of our businesses, I've been this level for so long, the only way I'm going to promote is to go somewhere else and be a people leader. No, just keep learning, just keep doing. I'm a big fan of things called T skills, where it's like, I know network security really, really well. I'm going to branch out into firewall security and threat hunting. I'm going to branch out from there into these other things. And I can go deep in all those skills and build my T, either a few things really deep, bunch of things really wide, combination, and build a upside down triangle, whatever. There are all these possibilities. And I don't like the narrative that's been around for my entire career of at some point you have to choose to go people leadership if you want to keep getting ahead. And I don't know that that's what you meant to say, but I wanted to cut it off before you even possibly got close to that.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a broad generalization, but a lot of times, right, if you hit that people leader, it's harder. Like, you have to be more intentional with your own personal time of how you bolster your skills, right? So it would be easy to do what you just described, to lead people and coach and invest your time into them. And next thing you know, you blink and it's 2 years. You're like, holy crap, there are 9 new softwares out and we've purchased, like, you've done your job to lead, but how do you keep your,
we only have a certain number of heartbeats and breaths in our lifetime.
Right.
How do you want to spend your day to day is what I always tell junior hackers. Do you want to spend most of your time writing reports about the cool thing you did 2 weeks ago? Cool. Go into pen testing. If you want to do, that's how you're going to spend your time. If you didn't know that, spoiler alert, pen testers write reports and that's what you're paid for. If you want to spend your time that way, spend your time that way, but be very deliberate either way with what you spend your days, your hours every day doing. Because like you said, blink and it's 2 years. I have an 18-year-old graduating next month. And I'm just like, he was this big. The days are long, but the years are short is what I was told. And it fits for careers. It fits for kids.
What's a great segue to talk competitions, right? What better way to keep your skills up to snuff is to continue to go to competitions, right? So, as we look at, and a lot of times cons and competitions coincide, right? A lot of times, especially for good cons, they come together. But what is the important role that competitions play in this kind of skills based mindset of how do we continue to learn and grow and do that?
There is a huge gap between what we think we know and what we can demonstratably show that we know. And one of the things that I both love and hate about capture the flag type competitions, or even like drama speaking competitions or sports competitions, a lot of times it depends who else is in the competition for how well you look. But if you use a competition of, am I better at this competition than I was at the one a month ago? If you look at, this is how I'm doing on Hack the Box or Try Hack Me or Pentester Labs, great platforms. and this is how I did at B-Side St. Louis Capture the Flag 2014 or 2000, whatever year it is, then it's demonstratable and you've got something tangible you can sink your teeth into. I did that. I broke into that box that I had never seen before, and all these people didn't, and all these people did. I'm going to go talk to those people for how they got into it because that's cool, so on and so forth. So I love the fact that we have so many demonstrably good ways to show our knowledge and our capability. And honestly, one of the best things about competitions too is the time boxing. You have to not only be able to know what you're doing, you have to know how to do it right now and not get distracted, not get fatigued, not get burned out. You have to go into it with I have this very limited time. I'm going to accomplish this goal. Win the capture the flag, get into one box, log into the scoreboard properly. Whatever your goal is, set one. And, it's not a news flash to anybody that knows me, but I'm a terrible CTFer. CTFs are so hard compared to what I always learned as real life hacking. It was way easier to break into bank security or a hospital or whatever than it was to figure out a crypto puzzle on a capture the flag, because they're meant to be more difficult. The real world, you just ask somebody for their password, they give it to you. It's kind of sad. Please don't use this as an excuse to go do those criminal activities. Everything I did was under NDA and capture the flag, so on and so forth, the disclaimers. But having that tangible piece, and then again to the networking, that guy in the room was team, checkmate or whatever, and he won the competition. How'd he do that? I'm going to go ask. And usually the people that are winning are good and are going to share their knowledge too. So it ties into that community piece as well. But the competitions, that tangibleness is the big piece.
I think a part that a lot of people maybe don't realize, like, let's say, money's a thing, I can't go to this con or competition. You're good. You don't necessarily have to participate. A lot of times individuals that do go create a ton of content around the challenges and competitions, right? We elaborate a little bit on that of just like how, like, let's say I can't go to RSA, I can't go to DEF CON in Vegas to go do some of those things, but I want to see the behind the curtains. How do I tap into that?
So I'm so glad you brought that up. There are so many good cons, and the ubiquity of recording capability is out there that almost everybody records their talks, and like their capture the flag type experience is open to the internet as well as in person. Now you can't win prizes if you're on the internet because you can't come pick it up. But for the most part, you can Google any conference you want to. RSA, I don't think has a capture the flag, but any of the other ones, you can Google, DEF CON 2023 capture the flag, and you will find so many blog posts. Here's what we did. Here's what we found. Here's what we had problems with, so on and so forth. It's a great way to learn. Same on the platforms that I mentioned for separate solo learning. There's people that are like, I did this box on Hack the Box and it was really hard. Here's how I did it. Here's what I learned, so on and so forth. So just a quick Google of anything about Black Hat DEF CON, great place to start. Name the city B-sides, great place to start. You're going to see people talking about the con. You're going to hear people talking about talks at the con. You're going to hear people talking about the capture the flag at the con and how much it was awesome or sucked, or somewhere in the middle, it sucked for me, it was awesome for this person, so on and so forth. So real quick Google searches, and you can find almost all of that. The most recent one that I know is still putting talks out is CypherCon. And they had, I want to say, like 4 or 5 different capture the flags. One of them was about the electronic PCB board badges, and they had a whole competition around gaining points and hacking into the badge. Then they had a OSINT capture the flag. Can you find this picture online, so to speak? And the normal King of the Hill capture the points type capture the flag. So there's so many different types, so many different ways to get that information, and it's all just a Google search away. People get this content with the intent of sharing it to everybody we can. That is the community that I love, that makes all of this free. Certain industry events, RSA in particular, you got to pay for access to all that stuff after the event. But as a new learner, you can absolutely find free content that's as good or better.
Well, I mean, the con community is, I don't know, it's great. I've lived vicariously through you, and I know you've planned a ton of cons over the years, right?
I enjoy it. One of the things back there is a collection of con badges. You can't see it very well. My chair's in the way, but yeah, I've gone to more than a few.
And I think they're an important part, right? So, the question I get asked often is like, how do I show my work?
Mhm.
How can I show others that I know these things, or it's hard to demonstrate technical
It
hacking
is.
skills. You can't just show it, right? So, the cons are a good way to do that. You want to let's say I'm trying to figure out, maybe I've gone to a boot camp, got a cert, and I want to build my skills. Cons are
Mhm.
great, but how do I show my work for others to see my skills?
Right. And great question. I get asked that a lot too. And it does come down to, well, what kind of work do you want to show? If you're a developer and you don't have a public GitHub showing that you're coding every other day and adding new things, you're probably not showing your work that well. If you're a hacker and you haven't taken time, and I am guilty of this, to go to Hack the Box and just break into some stuff the way you know how to break into some stuff, there are ways to show that. But ultimately, it's all going to come down to you being able to interact human to human about what you know. And some people are absolute smoke artists that can say they know everything and sound exactly like they know what they're doing. Put them in a job and they do not perform at the level they're supposed to. But there's just as many people out there that have the capability, but because they have not been intentional on how to talk about the capability. Again, security people tend not to be great marketers and advertisers of their own skills or themselves or what they're doing. Learn some of that, how to talk about yourself. I will always recommend the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence People. It sounds so salesy and so manipulative, but it really is about making genuine human connections. And that is what gets you past the HR boss. I refer to the HR boss like you send in a blind resume and you've got this list of skills. And if you don't hit the right buzzwords for the right position, the HR algorithm, possibly an actual human, won't pass it on to the hiring manager who actually knows what those things mean. But when you've got someone like me that you've met at a con, and I'm like, oh, I know you know that. We had a great conversation about that. And I can put your resume into somebody's inbox as well, above and beyond the applied resume. You got to do both. You got to actually apply for the job the regular way and hear about the job separately. It changes the whole conversation, because then you've got somebody who's already there vouching for you to a part. Now, don't abuse that, because I like everybody and I want to help everybody get a job, but I can't, use my capability to get everybody a job at any employer. But having the ability to tell stories, talk to people, communicate with humans is what will get you past that HR boss. That is what will show your skills, even if it's not showing our skills in the traditional sense. Like, I'm not going to watch somebody social engineer somebody else and only then will I give them the double check that they actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, my advice for that is just, if you're asking somebody for a referral, be mindful of that's a big ask, right?
It is.
You only have so much social clout or professional clout that you have the ability to use at a period of time. So make sure that when that question or request is made, that you've put in the time and equity to actually earn that piece and that referral for that person, not just hey, I met Ben last week, dude. I saw this job. It's not there. And I had a conversation with somebody earlier this week, because all the I want to say negative, but everybody right now, the job market's tough.
Job market sucks right now. Yep, for everybody.
But this is what I know to be true. If everybody that's listening to this does what Ben just said, attend the cons, attend the people, make friends, build your social capital within the community, and you have the skills, or at least a way to show the skills behind it, you're going to get a job. I know that sounds I'm oversimplifying it, but I can, time and time again, I've just continued to see people that, get the skills, network, meet people, throw themselves out there, engage in the community. That all comes back tenfold. And that person then, much like Ben, because I know your career pretty well of how you got into it. That's what happened to you, right? You got into it.
That is literally what happened to me.
Pulled you under and said, here you go. And you've now paid it forward, right? We'll go back to our good old fashioned Haley Joel Osment movies back in the day, right? And reference, pay it forward, dude. And just help. My one thing that I think has changed that, I think everybody I've appreciated the community because nobody was afraid to lose their job. So of course you invited everybody, right? Come on in, because there's a million jobs. I found that that's getting harder because the job market's kind of tightened up a little bit. So, you got to be mindful of that. You might be asking favors for somebody who probably has some concerns or fears of their own of how things are going to go just because of the economy and all the different things that are there. So, dude, we are at 30 minutes. That went way faster than I would have thought it would be. Quick. So
I talk a lot.
It's a great conversation, but we have one more question. Everybody gets the same one. What advice would you give to somebody to level up their cybersecurity career?
Focus on a technology that you believe in, learn it in and out, and be able to talk about when not to use it. If you're the person who can say, here's where MFA doesn't work right, or whatever, name a technology, and you have good technical reasons for that, because you know the technology really well and you're passionate about it, you will never doubt, or you will never go without having conversations to have and people to talk to and jobs to prove what you know.
Don't mind me. I was on mute just choking as you're giving your answer. Whew,
I choked him up. He cried. I mentioned MFA and he just got tears. And yeah.
I choked up. Yeah. But man, Ben, one, I appreciate your friendship over the years, man. I continue to just have a tremendous amount of respect just for you and what you do for the entire community. So that I appreciate. And two, I just appreciate your time today and sharing your knowledge with the group. So thank you, sir. Thanks for everybody that tunes in and listens. I appreciate the show. And until next time, we'll see you guys soon. Have a great week.
You belong in tech.